Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to see all your faces. Um, I want to say thank you to David for being our Zoom moderator this evening, and a thank you to One Spirit for giving me the opportunity to present this material to you all. So before we get started, I just want to give everybody the opportunity to settle in, get comfortable, take a deep breath if you need one. Take another one if you need one. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your bum in your seat. And I'm going to open with just a short prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this time that we get to share together this evening at the gathering. We thank you for our open hearts and our open minds to the topic at hand. We thank you, dear God, for One Spirit, for the incredible organization that it is that brings so many of us together to learn, to grow, and to share. May our time here this evening be blessed. May each of us receive whatever messages we are meant to receive and give whatever messages we are meant to give. Amen. So before we get started, I will just lay out how the next hour is going to go. I'm going to give you all a quick introduction about myself. And after that, I will talk about the whys of writing your own obituary and the benefits of doing it. After that, I'm going to share with you some wonderful examples of obituaries that were written by people before they died. Would love to have some conversation about them, some discussion as you feel so called. Following that, we're going to look at some questions for reflection to kind of get the juices flowing and help you get started. And as I said, I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes. We'll see how our time is going, just to start jotting down any notes or ideas that you might have. And then depending on our time and how we're doing, we may have another 5 to 10 minutes if anyone would like to share just about how that initial exercise of writing notes for their obituary went. So that's our schedule for the next hour. And I would also like to tell you all, about me. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Karen Bonificino. I live in Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Philadelphia. And I am a 2019 graduate of One Spirit's seminary program. I attended seminary out of a real desire to work in the field of death and dying. That was my motivation at 47 years old. My professional background is in horticulture and sustainable agriculture and community farmers markets. However, I now officiate funerals on a regular basis. I'm an end-of-life doula, and I teach workshops on end-of-life planning, obituary writing, and home funerals and green burial. So the question is, how did I get from horticulture to becoming a minister and being here with all of you this evening? And the really short answer to that question is, I had a real epiphany in my mid-30s. It was a few years after my dad died, and the experience of his death and kind of how we normally do things in dominant culture North America made it really clear to me how cut off we are from the experience of death in our society. And not just the death of our loved ones, but from our own deaths as well. And if, like myself, you believe that death will be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, spiritual transformation of your existence, then it's kind of sad that we spend so little time thinking about it, planning for it, and engaging with our death. So one of my goals is to provide opportunities for people to do this kind of work and to engage with their mortality so that they can reap the benefits of this work. So that's what we're going to explore tonight. And hopefully that is what some of you are going to do on your own after tonight. So right off the bat, let me commend you all for your willingness to be here this evening and to contemplate, even just contemplate, writing your own obituary. The typical reaction that I get when people hear about this workshop and this work is one of horror. So pat yourselves on the back for doing something so far out of our cultural norm. I mean, this is way outside our cultural norm. So kudos to you all for your willingness to do this and for your bravery to look your mortality squarely in the eye. So let's talk about the why. Why would someone write their own obituary? And what are the potential benefits of doing it? And I have quite a list here. I think I could go on all night, but I'll keep it, somewhat short. So on the most basic level, one reason to write your own obituary is that it relieves your loved ones of having to do it for you, right? I mean, it's a very basic reason, but at a time when they may very well be grieving and overwhelmed, and dealing with all the things that have to be dealt with after someone dies. If you have written your obituary, it's kind of like, check, one less thing off the list that they have to do. So for some people, I think they do find that appealing, that it relieves their loved ones of that burden, so be it. The second reason, and perhaps maybe a little more compelling why someone might want to do this, is that when it comes to your life and your self-portrait, who can write this better than you? Really, no one. If you think about most obituaries that you read in the papers these days, they sound rather flat, and not very appealing or very exciting. And I think one of the reasons for that is that they're written by someone else. And I feel like a lot of obituaries are written just kind of as a formality. It's just one more thing on the list of tasks to be done after someone dies. So if you want your final words and your portrait of your life to be honest, to be accurate, to be authentic in any way, you're probably going to have to write it yourself. And in that way, it can be written in your voice and be something of your legacy in the obituary. So, third reason, and this is another, I think, very compelling one. Doing this exercise is pregnant with possibility and with opportunity for therapeutic experiences. And under the umbrella of therapeutic experiences, there's another list that I will share with you. One of the first opportunities is the opportunity to reflect on your life in an incredibly holistic way. We're starting at birth, and none of us know the day or the date of our death, but in the process of this exercise, we are imagining it. And so to look at your life from cradle to grave and reflect upon it and begin to write about it is an incredibly powerful experience. So that in and of itself is a very worthy reason to do this. However, there is more. There is the opportunity for those who have the desire to do so to perhaps make peace with some aspects of your life that you would like to make some peace with. Maybe when you're in that process of reflecting on your life, it becomes very clear that there are things that you wish had been different, or that you wish you could have changed. And again, in the process of examining those aspects of your life, in the process of reflecting on them and writing about them, there is an opportunity, perhaps, to find some peace with the more difficult things that you may have been through. Another opportunity is the opportunity to come into greater alignment with the process of aging and growing older. And as we all know, our culture is forever grasping at youth, and many of our fellow human beings are forever grasping at youth. And yet it can be a very powerful experience to come into alignment with who you are and the age that you're at, and the opportunity to take on more of an elder mindset and to really be okay with that. So this is one way of stepping into the aging process with greater peace. And while we're talking about greater alignment about aging and growing older, here's the whole making friends with your impermanence piece. We all have the opportunity in this exercise to come into greater acceptance of our mortality. And that's really the big one. As I said, because we live in a culture that would like to keep the thought of death and the inevitable end as far away from possible, as far away as possible. This exercise brings it right up to you. And the title of this short little gathering this evening is called Making Friends with Impermanence. And as you all know, when you want to get to know someone, when you want to become friends with them, you bring them close, you bring them in. And there is tremendous opportunity to release fear, release anxiety, possibly release some grief, your own grief for your life and its inevitable loss. As you bring your mortality closer, you can release some of those negative emotions around it and feel more comfortable and find that you can befriend it, And one other kind of therapeutic benefit of this practice that I will also throw out there is, for some people, this exercise is an opportunity to make changes going forward. Some of you, as you begin to do this work and to do this writing, may find, there's some things I still really want to do, or maybe I want to live a little differently going forward. This exercise for some people can be a kind of course correction or an opportunity to shift in a way that feels more in alignment going forward. this exercise is pregnant with possibilities and full of opportunities. And I'll throw out one more reason why someone might want to do this, and one other benefit of the practice. And that is that the more we engage with our mortality and the reality of our inevitable death, the more you may find you appreciate your life. And it's this paradox that bringing it close and befriending it makes life richer. It's the exact opposite than what most people would think. I think most people's fear is, if I get too close to my mortality, I'm gonna, life is gonna slip through my hands. I'm, something bad is gonna happen. And really, for many people, life becomes even richer, because the awareness of your impermanence makes every day that much more precious. So how about it? So those are some whys of why this exercise is beneficial, and some possible outcomes. And so before I start diving in and sharing some wonderful, beautiful obituaries with you folks, just wondering if anybody has any questions, any comments. And I think David, our Zoom moderator, said that you will all be able to just unmute yourselves. So if you have a question or if you have a comment, just jump right in there, unmute yourself. Does anybody have anything from that first part? Okay.
No, there was just a little something you just said in one of your last sentences.
Okay.
The whys of, and my brain, I'm sorry, it jumped into, well, is it WHY?
Yes.
Or WISE. So that was in your
Oh,
sentence. How
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful, Leslie. Thank you. The whys and the whys. Nice, nice, nice.
I just like to make a comment.
Sure.
I actually did this exercise when I was doing an end of life part of my seminary training, I believe. And it was an eye-opener for me, because when I read it over, I realized I had not written anything about my early life, about my education, my university, my marriage, my child. I wrote everything about after I retired and after I found the labyrinth and after I went to seminary. And so I realized my life didn't start until I retired.
How beautiful.
And it was a wonderful revelation, and I've never forgotten it.
Thank you for sharing that, Jean. Yeah, talk about a revelation for sure. Good for you. Good for you. That's great.
Hi, I just want to jump in and make one comment, because it kind of rubbed me as I was, as you were saying it, only because I had an experience of a very dear friend who died about 3 years ago, and she had planned every aspect of her funeral. She had, in fact, she had just planned her whole funeral, and we were not able to, in the end, find her plan. But I remember when she was telling me that, choosing the music and everything, and I said, you might want to leave a little piece for the people who love you to express themselves and to step into that. And so for me, doing this exercise to not be a burden of one more task for my family, that's the part that kind of didn't sit well with me. Like, for me, it's absolutely a beautiful self-reflection experience, but there was just that one part about, do we really want to leave no room for people who are grieving to grieve us? So Indeed.
And thank you for putting that out there. Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, for some people that is a very strong motivator. But I personally am like you. I think it's much more about what you can get out of it as an individual. And I hear you. I've heard that as well about people who plan their funerals down to the minute, and then everybody feels a little handcuffed by, the plan. Although, thank you for mentioning the piece about not being able to find it, because something that I want you all also to take away from this evening is that if you go to the trouble of writing this, make sure that what I would do personally is just give copies of it to anyone who you think would need it, whether those are digital copies or whether those are hard copies. Just make sure that if you really love it and you're like, yes, this is, these are my final words that I want everyone to hear after I'm gone, make sure it's not, in a drawer under a pile of papers where no one will be able to find it. So yeah, that's an important piece as well.
This is Betty. I've started a Google Doc with just some ideas, but one thing that I think helps is I made it an editable one, and I asked people to contribute. So that's a way to ask for contributions before you die.
Nice.
And I did relate to the part about leaving it to someone, because for both of my parents, it's the funeral home that usually hands you a template or actually sits there, and it does come out sounding impersonal, and I wasn't happy with theirs. So,
Yep.
so I think it is a good idea to think about it beforehand, but get contributions so people aren't feeling pressured.
Thank you for sharing that, Betty. I will mention that going forward in my workshops, that like it can be a group process. I love it. I love it. Hear, hear. Collaborative obituary writing. Brilliant, brilliant. All right, well, let's go. I've got three here, three really pretty spectacular ones. And I will tell you now that I am skipping some of the less juicy parts where they're maybe just talking about where they went to elementary school or, career accolades. I'm gonna focus on the good stuff. And so this very first one apparently was widely circulated after it was published. The woman's name is Jane Catherine Lotter. She died in 2013, and this is what she wrote. One of the few advantages of dying from grade 3, stage 3 endometrial cancer, recurrent and metastasized to the liver and abdomen, is that you have time to write your own obituary. The other advantages are no longer bothering with sunscreen and no longer worrying about your cholesterol. And then I'm skipping ahead through some of the kind of run-of-the-mill parts, and I'm going to share with you the last few paragraphs. She says, I met Bob Martz at the Central Tavern in Pioneer Square on November 22nd, 1975, which was the luckiest night of my life. We were married on April 7th, 1984. Bobby M., I love you up to the sky. Thank you for all the laughter and the love, and for standing by me at the end. Tessa and Riley, I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. I wish you such good things. May you every day connect with the brilliancy of your own spirit, and may you always remember that obstacles in the path are not obstacles, they are the path. I believe we are each of us connected to every person and everything on this earth, that we are in fact one divine organism having an infinite spiritual experience. Of course, we may not always comprehend that, and really that's a discussion for another time. So let's cut to the chase. I was given the gift of life, and now I have to give it back. This is hard. but I was a lucky woman who led a lucky existence, and for this I am grateful. I first got sick in January 2010. When the cancer recurred last year and was terminal, I decided to be joyful about having had a full life rather than sad about having to die. Amazingly, this outlook worked for me. Well, most of the time. Meditation and the study of Buddhist philosophy also helped me accept what I could not change. At any rate, I am at peace. And on that upbeat note, I take my mortal leave of this rollicking, revolving world, this sun, that moon, that walk around Green Lake, that stroll through the Pike Place Market, the memory of a child's hand in mine. To my beloved friends and family, how precious you all have been to me. Knowing and loving each one of you was the success story of my life. Metaphorically speaking, we will all meet again joyfully on the other side. And it is just beautiful. I mean, some of the real standouts for me, and if anybody has any comments about it, is, she's got her final messages and wishes in there to some of her family and her loved ones. She shares kind of her philosophy and her spiritual outlook on her own death, which I got to tell you, I think is kind of a beautiful legacy, that in sharing how she has accepted her own death, it's like she gives permission to her children, to her family and friends, like, it's okay to accept yours too, because I'm okay with this. So anyway, just a beautiful one. If anybody has anything they want to say, feel free to jump in.
I'd like to say that I thought it was really moving how she states that her friends and her family are her successes.
Yeah.
Rather than a transactional laundry list of achievements.
Yeah. Well, she does. I did skip. I mean, she does share about her career and her accolades. And yet, exactly. And in the very end, she says, yeah, you were my success. Yeah. Yeah. Hear, hear, and amen.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
I would add, I've never heard an obituary written like that in the first person.
Right.
And when I sat with my family, with the funeral director, after my mother died suddenly, it was just figures. We gave him facts, and that's what was placed into, 1 or 2 paragraphs. I don't even remember how long it was, but it was nothing really about her life. It was just some historical milestones. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something that I'm going to talk about before I give you all some time to start writing, is how do you want to write it from the I perspective in the first person or in the third person? So yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because we will touch on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I thought it was so lovely how she mentioned her family and friends, and she actually was kind of teaching.
Yeah. Hear, hear.
And I just thought that was beautiful, that she wanted to, from her perspective, I mean, dying.
Yeah.
And offering that, it was a gift.
Inspirational. Yeah.
Hear, hear. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, so here's our second one, which is written by a man named Val Patterson. This has a little more humor in it, and it also has some regret, which makes it a little sad at the end. I will read it for you, and then, we'll love to hear what you all think. He died in 2012. And this is what Val wrote. for himself. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, March 27th, 1953. I died of throat cancer on July 10th, 2012. I was a true scientist, electronics, chemistry, physics, auto mechanic, woodworker, artist, inventor, businessman, ribald comedian, husband, brother, son, cat lover, cynic. I had a lot of fun. It was an honor for me to be friends with some truly great people. But the one special thing that made my spirit whole is my long love and friendship with my remarkable wife, my beloved Mary Jane. I loved her more than I have words to express. Every moment spent with my Mary Jane was time spent wisely. Over time, I became one with her, inseparable, happy, fulfilled. And then he shifts gears a little bit and he says, now that I have gone to my reward, I have confessions and things I should say now. As it turns out, I am the guy who stole the safe from the Motorview Inn back in June 1971. I could have left that unsaid, but I wanted to get it off my chest. Also, I really am not a PhD. What happened was the day I went to pay off my college loans at the University of Utah, the girl working there put my receipt in the wrong stack. And 2 weeks later, a PhD diploma came in the mail. I didn't even graduate. I only had about 3 years of college credit. In fact, I never did even learn what the letters PhD stood for. To all the electronic engineers I have worked with, I'm sorry, but you have to admit my designs always worked very well, and I always made you laugh. To Disneyland, you can now throw away that banned for life file you have on me, and SeaWorld of San Diego too, if you happen to read this. So he's really, and then he has some messages for his friends, and he talks about the time when they grew up and what a great era it was to live in. And then he closes with this paragraph. My regret is that I felt invincible when young and smoked cigarettes when I knew they were bad for me. Now, to make it worse, I have robbed my beloved Mary Jane of a decade or more of the two of us growing old together and laughing at all the thousands of simple things that we have come to enjoy and fill our lives with such happy words and moments. My pain is enormous, but it pales in comparison to watching my wife feel my pain as she lovingly cares for and comforts me. I feel like such a thief now for stealing so much from her. There is no pill I can take to erase that pain. If you knew me or not, dear reader, I'm happy you got this far into my letter. I speak as a person who had a great life to look back on. If you knew me, remember me in your own way. If you want to live forever, then don't stop breathing like I did. So there's a little humor there at the end with that last line. But you know, for me, and I would love to hear what you folks think. For me, I think one of the things that is so clear is like no one else could have written this except him, right? I mean, when he's sharing his love for his wife and his regrets at leaving her behind, like he's bearing his soul, and nobody else but him could have written these words. So I find that pretty powerful. Any thoughts?
I think of this one as being very therapeutic.
Mm.
He got to say goodbye, I love you, and this is what I'm sorry for.
Yeah.
And in the end, you know, that brings such peace. And sadly, so many people never have the opportunity to do that. And we could all go at any moment. So I think having this opportunity to put that on paper and have that shared is really powerful.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Well said.
I like having the element of humor, and I hadn't thought about that in an obituary. But I did officiate a celebration of life a couple of years ago, and the decedent's daughter found 2 obituaries that Dad had written that were in his desk drawer. And one of them was quite humorous. It said that he died, he was missing while surfing at the age of 90 off the coast of Hawaii. And of course, he never made it to 90 years old. I don't know if he was a surfer to begin with. And the last part, I'm hoping I'm not offending anybody here, but if you wanted to make a donation in his memory, make it to the Texas secession movement.
That's great.
I thought he got the last laugh by providing that to his daughter.
Indeed, indeed. And yeah, I mean, let me be really clear, like the obituary does not have to be serious at all. It is some of the ones that are out there, a lot of the really like hilariously funny ones were not written by the person themselves. They were written by, you know, a spouse or a child. And some of them are absolutely brilliant in their comedy. But so yeah, it can be as funny or as serious or somewhere in between as you want it to be. All right, so here's our final one, and this one is, wait till you hear this story. This guy, John Hoddle, died in 1970 at 26 years old. He was a major in the Army who was being shipped out for Vietnam and wrote his obituary before he left and gave it to his wife in case he didn't make it back. And lo and behold, he didn't make it back. So this was written by him. It was ultimately published in the New York Times, and he talks about a lot about his life in the Army. So you will hear about that as I read it. And so here's what John wrote for himself. I am writing my obituary for several reasons, and I hope none of them are too trite. First, I would like to spare my friends who may happen to read this the usual cliches about being a good soldier. Second, I would not want to be a party to the perpetuation of an image that is harmful and inaccurate. Glory is the most meaningless of concepts, and I feel that in some cases it is doubly damaging. And thirdly, I am quite simply the last authority on my own death. And then he says, I loved the Army. It reared me, nurtured me, and gave me the most satisfying years of my life. Thanks to it, I have lived an entire lifetime in just 26 years. It is only fitting that I should die in its service. We all have but one death to spend, and insofar as it can have any meaning, it finds it in the service of comrades in arms. And yet I deny that I died for anything, not my country, not my army, not my fellow man, none of these things. I lived for these things. And for the manner in which I chose to do it, it involved the very real chance that I would die in the execution of my duties. I knew this and accepted it, but my love for West Point and the Army was great enough for me to accept this possibility as a part of the price which must be paid for all things of great value. He talks about places where he was stationed and all the places that he traveled with the Army. He says, I have known what it is like to be married to a fine and wonderful woman and to love her beyond bearing with the sure knowledge that she loves me. I have commanded a company and been a father, priest, income tax advisor, confessor, and judge for 200 men at a time. I have played college football and rugby, won the British National Diving Championship 2 years in a row, boxed for Oxford against Cambridge, and played handball to distraction. And all of these sports I loved and I learned at West Point. He shares some more details and he says, I have experienced all these things because I was in the Army and because I was an Army brat. The Army is my life. It is such a part of what I was that what happened is the logical outcome of the life I lived. I never knew what it is to fail. I never knew what it is to be old or too tired to do anything. I lived a full life in the Army, and it has exacted the price. It is only just. Talk about a wise 26 years old, right? Whew. Yeah. One thing that I notice in that obituary is that the style in which it's written, I can hear a soldier behind it. There's something about the way he's kind of bump, 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 that it feels very structured and regimented to me for some reason.
Lots of conviction.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I hear.
But yeah, I hear the beat.
Uh-huh.
And the, what's the word? Not the rhyming, but the, you said it. It's a beat. Like,
yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm glad it's not just me. So real quick, I'm going to share a couple more short ones, and I'm being mindful of the time. So I'm just going to keep going. There is such a thing as a one-line obituary. And I feel compelled to mention this for the minimalists who maybe really don't want to write this big long thing, who are like, nope, I'm going to sum it up in one line. So here's a couple. I don't know how good they are, but this is what these people came up with. The first one is, she was fun while she lasted. One line. And the next one is, I did the best I could with what I had. So throwing that out there. And then for the poets among you, because I know One Spirit people always have poetry not far away. This is a short poem written by a gentleman for himself, whose name was Rudy, and he titled his poem, Rudy's World. The day Rudy's world ended was much like any other, as was the next. In the years and days leading up to his demise, Rudy found comfort in the fact that his life was better than most, because the people that loved him were better than most. And in the notion that there is no such thing as death, that there is only the absence of life. Rudy was not big on the details. So throw that out there for you as well. So let's talk about length real quick. Some of these obituaries that I was editing significantly as I was reading them to you are rather long. I mean, 10 paragraphs, 12 paragraphs. The one for the Army gentleman, 2 pages. So sometimes people wonder, like, doesn't it have to be shorter? How long can it be? My feeling is that in this digital age that we live in, getting your obituary, publishing it in the newspaper is kind of less and less of a thing. It's very expensive to publish an obituary in most newspapers. I believe they charge by the word. So most people now, the obituary is published on the funeral director's website. It's posted on social media. It's kind of passed around digitally online. And so for that reason, I feel like you don't need to limit yourself on length unless you want to. If there are things you want to explore and you want to put in there, don't feel like, oh, I have to keep this a certain length because it has to be short. That being said, if you do know that you want it published in the newspaper, then definitely be mindful of the length. Or maybe you have a shorter version that gets published, and then you have a longer version that, you know, family and friends get to share. So just wanted to mention that about length. And then I wanted to bring up what Ron had pointed out. All three of these longer obituaries were written in the first person. Everybody uses I, you know, I lived in Seattle and I did this. However, I know that some people, it feels more comfortable or it feels right to them to refer to themselves in the third person. So if you want to refer to yourself as, you know, Karen this, or, you know, and using your name, go for it. Don't feel like you have to write it one way or the other. Play around with the two different voices and see what feels good to you. So just wanted to mention those couple things. I'm going to give you all about 10 minutes, which is going to take us just past 8 o'clock. And if any of you can stick around after that to share a little bit what the exercise is like for you or was like for you, that would be great. David said we don't have to jump right off at 8 o'clock. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that David was going to post questions for reflection. There they are. Please don't feel like you have to answer all these questions. It's not a checklist. They are purely just to kind of get the juices flowing and help you to start brainstorming. So if you don't need the questions, then don't look at them and don't worry about it. But if you like the questions and you want to use them to help you get started, go for it. So it is just about 5 of 8. I'll let you know when the 10 minutes is starting to wrap up, and have fun. Got about 1 minute left, so you can kind of wrap up whatever you're writing at the moment. David, if you want to bring the music down, I'll call everybody back. I just want to mention real quick, I did put my email address in the chat. If anybody wants to jot it down, it's info@revkaren.com. If you want links to obituaries, or if you are interested in a follow-up session, it's in the chat. So if any of you have to leave, I completely understand. But for those who don't need to scoot right away, I'm just curious. I know that was a very short period of time to begin jotting down a few ideas, but if anybody has anything they would like to share about how did it feel? Did you feel inspired? Do you feel like excited? Was it hard? Go ahead, Susan.
It was wonderful. I've been putting off doing this for years. I'm in a group, a 1 Year to Live group. We read the Stephen Levine book and did the exercises month by month. And I didn't go to the month's meeting where we were going to write ours.
Okay.
So I have 2 pages already that I feel very comfortable with, that I will keep working on, and I can't wait till the follow-up group. I was surprised at how easy, it wasn't easy to do it in first person. I think one reason that I've been avoiding doing it is because I thought it was sort of like bragging, this is what I did, this is what I did. And I have hardly any of that in mind. It's more about, this is who I was, this is who I am, this is who all of you who are here to celebrate my life are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for this opportunity.
You're here.
May I jump in?
Please.
I want to thank you for this. I loved the prompts, which indeed took us away from a list, a sort of curriculum vitae. I want to especially add something to the list of whys, is that this is especially precious in the time of COVID, when any of us can be taken away in an ambulance to the hospital to die, unprepared. And so I was especially grateful for this, and glad to hear that you also do end of life preparation, all that paperwork. It's so easy to do calmly ahead of time. So I just want to recognize your good work and thank you for presenting this tonight.
Thank you, Susie. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, Betty, go ahead.
Just something brief. I like the prompt about a saying or something that what came to me was my vows and how much they inform my life. So I thought, well, that'd be a wonderful thing to put in an obituary, because it really is something I try to say each morning to really lead me through each day. So that was that's what it prompted in me.
Brilliant. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I've done a few memorials and a couple of funerals, and I always try to tap into emotion, because it's a time when people are really together who who were loved by the deceased and have a connection. And I feel doing this is such a gift for them to really feel deeply in that moment.
Yay.
You know, it really would provoke that, you know, I try to do. And some of the times I know the person and sometimes I don't.
Right.
And so it's such a gift for the person to be allowed to grieve in an intimate way with people who also loved. So it's a gift we give even afterwards. And so, so I'm going to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to encourage, you know, because sometimes people do ask me, you know, I'd like you to do my memorial and my funeral while they're still alive. So I, you know, so most of them are older. This would be too much for them.
Right.
But some might.
Yeah. Excellent.
And
Excellent.
I will definitely do mine because, you know, hey, I love the last word.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Who doesn't, right? And thank you, Karen, for looking at it as a gift. I mean, that's what it feels like to me too. So I love that you connected with that. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Anne?
I'm really appreciating the prompts, as others have said, and one in particular is the forward thinking prompt. So what is it that you would do now that you have done?
Yeah.
You would want included in your obituary. And I think of the value of doing this exercise with young people. I think about even college students, where they're really searching for their passion and purpose in life. Doing something like this could really help that bubble up.
Yeah.
Really at any stage in life, but just thank you so much for such thoughtful prompts that I think apply to all of us at any stage or phase of life.
For sure. Yeah, it sounds like a very powerful exercise for young people as well. I agree. Thank you. Thank you. Claudia.
I love this exercise. I love the whole concept of becoming more comfortable with our impermanence. And I love the happy task actually of writing an obituary. You know, it's like, it's almost a fun thing to sit and think about what do I want to leave people with? You know, who's the essence? What is the essence? Why was I here? You know, I work in a hospital as a chaplain, and especially, as Susie pointed out, this year and this time, I've sat with so many people who regretted not having this left behind. You know, I wish I had said this. I wish I had made up with this person. I wish I had done this or that, or that this person knows how much I love them. These are such important things to say, not only to leave behind for those people who are going on in life, but to, I think, unburden the soul when we're in this transition moment.
Amen.
With regrets, but said them, you know, regretting not having said whatever needed to be said is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this beautiful exercise. It is so valuable, especially now.
Thank you. And so well said, Claudia. Exactly. To be able to go to our deathbeds knowing that we haven't left anything unsaid. Again, as Karen said, like, what a gift for people that we love to know how much we love them and all the things. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to hold you all up any further this evening. Does anybody else have any final things they want to get in real quick?
I just want to say I very much appreciated everybody's sharings, because I was able to answer some of the questions, but some were very difficult for me because of where I am in my life right now.
Yeah.
So I appreciated hearing this and sharing and being part of it. Thank you so much. It really was beautiful.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. And yeah, I know. Thank you all for all your sharing. It makes it so much richer when we get to hear from everyone. So I appreciate all your thoughts and comments. Yeah. All right. Shoot me an email if you want to follow up, and all of you be well and take care. And thank you so much for joining me tonight.